Hello, today we are back again against Guess Who's Back. We are playing a Fire Badger Specialist with Ball Hound Start, and our opponent is Saber Fang Start, and he ends up picking up some hounds. We pick up some crawlers, and it looks like we're going to be in an asymmetrical aggro for both of us. Some people call this the 69, and either way, we're going to be showing how to play in a bit of a 69 here when both players relatively commit to a certain degree. Eventually, you do want to build behind your towers to help defend it a little bit with the high level tower. That is kind of the idea, is you rush the tower, and then you try and catch the army from behind with the superior chaff that you have. At the moment, our opponent does not have superior chaff because you want the chaff that runs to the tower quickly. So we can see how the tower timings affect our push. As we get the second tower, just after they get the first tower, it's relatively what you want to see. This is very nice for us, this pull. Later on in the rounds, if we don't get to this tower in time and this pull, this group starts coming up, that can be very detrimental actually. So it's actually a very good idea to put a Fang or something way back here to pull these guys to continue on to your other tower, so your units continue on as well. I don't do that until later in the game here. I think Wasp is probably a great pickup. Sledge is also nice for our opponent here to slow down our steel balls. Makes a lot of sense. Our opponent is missile specialist, so we are dropping the value missile or value shield here, hoping to block as much damage as possible. And we are going for a little bit of a flank push as well. We have leveled our tower. Our opponent is going for their crawlers finally. On round 2, he has recruited, I think, going for 3, just as we did. Go for 2. Depends on where this pack ends up going. We're probably going to be selling out of these wasps. We've been running Electromag instead of ground tech because I think it's better at countering the Wraith. But I guess you lose out on some of the damage, and maybe it's better to take the energy shield off. I've yet to test it enough to find out. But anyway, our opponent gets to the tower first, and this is actually kind of bad for us. Because they're going to get the second tower debuff, and we're going to be fighting their whole army head-to-head, and it just doesn't look very pretty for us because we're going to probably be fighting under a tower debuff. If we had the locks already on the Sabertooths when the tower went down, I think it would be okay, but since that did not happen, it is not for us this round. And Guess Who's Back takes the second round here, quite convincingly. Lots is offered. EM is the only pickup there, I believe. Anything else is a throw. So you're either skipping or taking the EM impact. And we are going immediately into our Fire Badger to help slow down these crawlers. Do we end up selling out the Wasp? We do for the missile. Just don't give our opponent any of the value. And we do probably lose one, if not both of those. I probably should have thought about my placement a little bit better. But that's what it is. Our opponent is building out the defense on this side, which I'm kind of happy about him doing it so early, especially without the tower level, because it makes my defense that much stronger with the tower level. So we lose one of the Phoenixes. We still keep the shield bubble, which is huge, because it's just going to prevent missiles for the rest of the game in this area. Yeah, at least until these Phoenixes are at level 2, I would say. So we get the tower, but we do end up running the wrong way here. Our Fire Badger did kill some of the chaff, but not all, which is nice. So it really depends on, do we get to this tower in a reasonable time where we're not getting pulled downward into the rest of the opponent's army. And we are getting pulled downward, so this is probably not very good for us. as the armies are going to clash under debuff. Guess who's back? Just winning the 69 early on, even though we have the steel ball, which should theoretically arrive first and take the tower first. And that is not happening at the moment. We're going to have to start fixing our board, slowing down this right side a little bit more than we are. A Rhino Assault is offered. I think that's probably a pickup for both players, otherwise it's a laser sight. Advanced Missile Device is interesting here, as there is a Saber right on the line. If you drop your missile right here, you will hit it instead of hitting these crawlers on the right. Opponent drops the Rhino behind us. I guess we just didn't bother to defend it this round. We're just ignoring, we're going speed. Our opponent is chaffing out on this left side of the board. We're pulling more of the chaff back here, which I think is important for us. Remember, the techs are 50 cheaper due to being Fire Badger specialists, so we do get more value by 50 by clicking Scorching Charge if our opponent does want to put out the fire with Extinguisher here. So it is cost value better, quote unquote, even though the unit is 100 more. But it also allows us to go more into techs into our hound, so we could go range and mech rage, while our opponent goes only 2 techs, range and fire extinguisher, which will give our hounds an advantage later on in the game. So these are things to think about as you are developing your board, about how the long-term fidelity of the board is, which is something you have to think about as an aggro player. You have to decide when is the right time to show your hand and when is the right time to completely back out. I think this is a battle we can eventually win, slowly and surely, but right now we're struggling a little bit because we haven't clicked our techs, and we're just kind of setting up our board now for this clash to be more in our favor. This is closer to what we want to be happening. We really need this tower here, and if we can get it, we might be able to chew through and get to the Sabertooth with our steel ball here and win the round. And it looks like we're just barely going to get that lock on with 3 or 4 of the balls, and that should be a win now for us. So we've stabilized a little bit here with just a couple, 4 units on this side. Again, more valuable than what our opponent has put in, but I think they're more cost efficient than what our opponent has brought to the table on this side of the board. We will be leveling our hounds that are behind the front line hounds. Maybe eventually we will level these hounds if they're not targeted too often. We are putting a second wave of hounds back here. They should be realistically all the way back, I believe. And we place an extra hound here just so we can come in and chaff clear a little bit ahead of the rest of our board as we come in. We definitely do need some chaff clear up here, whether it's a Fire Badger or a hound, I'm not sure yet. We kind of are doubling up. We have taken the Scorching Charge, which should be a nice value on this round here against the hound and all the crawlers our opponent does have on the board at this moment. Help chew down those numbers of chaff. Our opponent is going to be missiling out over here. I think this is kind of a worthy sacrifice for me. It makes me know what is happening on the board. He's going to missile this out every time, and since I won the last round, without it being missiled, now we got to test and see if he missiles this round and we still win. I'm just keeping it the same because at the end of the day, it gives him a target that I know is going to be consistent, and I'm already winning the board without it, potentially, if we do win this round. And it just, it's a worthy sacrifice. It's a distraction. It doesn't really do anything if he doesn't hit it. It's more value added on my board if he does hit it. It's the same value added on my board that wins if we do win. So I don't mind it being hit. They're unleveled. They're level 1. It's 300 supply, essentially, that he's getting value from that missile every other turn. You can consider it an eco win or loss in either way, but if I'm winning the board, it doesn't matter. There's other targets that are maybe more valuable in the frontier that you can chunk down faster, maybe get more of an advantage to get to this unleveled tower a little bit faster for our opponent. And with our steel balls alive and all these crawlers and the hounds up, we take the round win. Just from the fact that we are able to slow down and kill as much chaff as possible while pushing through very hard. I think EM is interesting, so is efficient tech. We do take the missile here. We have a nice juicy target right here. A lot of units are going to be running in. All these crawlers, these fangs, this entire hound pack almost. All are churning for the most part. Most of the crawlers are. So we're going to get a nice 300, 450, and maybe half a crawler pack. So 500 value. Our opponent does take the sprinkler, but we are already into range on the hounds. So our hounds are better than their hounds for the rest of the game, which is nice. Our opponent again going for the same spot here. We do fill out our chaff in the back here. The nice thing about these guys is they deal 50% of their HP to the targets when they explode. So they should be killing these hounds relatively quickly as well if they impact them with the Scorching Charge. And we do drop oil this round here. It's unfortunate our opponent did go for the Sprinkler as well on this turn. We could have had a much bigger win, potentially. But that is fine. We were expecting Sprinkler to come out eventually on this board with the Scorching Charge already on. And we've added some extra chaff clear here just to deal with these units here, so these units can have free access to the tower. So we're just holding them as close to the line as possible so these guys don't get aggroed. That is the idea there. The biggest problem is we want to clear these guys so we don't run off to the corner, but it doesn't take long. We get towers virtually at the same time, like it doesn't really matter. Everything's dead. Now we're in a full head-to-head but we do have some units running towards the tower. They have some units, but we have faster units to the tower. So we shall be getting the debuff before them, and we should be cleaning up the majority of their main army here. As the advantage of Steel Ball is showing through later in the rounds here, just being a slightly faster unit. The Hound's doing a great job staying alive, chaff clearing for our Steel Balls. Some of our crawlers still alive, which is huge. As I like to say, as an aggro player, anytime your crawlers make it to the enemy tower, you're doing something right. Wraith is offered. It's a very interesting choice. Farseer as well. So is the Scorpion. Scorpion is very good into the Steel Ball and the Hounds. It's also good into the Hounds and the Sabertooths. But we already have a level 3 balls, so we don't really need the Scorpion. What we do need is sufficient chaff clear and extra crawlers for the Scorpions. And eventually we will be wanting to take range on our Steel Balls, just so they aren't targeted as easily by the Scorpions. Our opponent takes double shot right away here. I guess that's so he can single tap these 2600 HP Steel Balls with the... And actually it doesn't even single tap, but it will single tap the 15k HP ones. I think it's a little bit... overkill in some ways, but I guess it's also good against the fire badgers that we have on the board. We only have 3. I don't think we're gonna get any more than 3 this game. I don't see any reason why I want to burn. I'm fine with burning back here, I'm fine with burning back here, and I'm fine with burning right here. I don't want any fire kind of in this area of the board, just for the simple fact that I want my crawlers to be alive for the Scorpions. So we're keeping our fire badgers off to the sides where they deal less problems for my own board when the fire does come out. The Farseers were taken just for the simple fact that we can potentially photon later if our opponent does put a big enough of a defense in front here. And it also acts as a nice wasp clear as well. Just a little bit of a detriment, or deterrent, I should say, for our opponent from going wasps later on. Our opponent takes tower after we've finished cleaning up behind tower. Opponent is probably going to get tower first this round. The question is how much connects in an appropriate manner. We do have some steel balls going for the tower, which is going to be huge if we can kill these sabers. And we do. Our Phoenix doing enough damage here to chew through. And we take a little win here. We definitely need to solve more of this right side a little bit harder. Acid's offered, which would be great if our opponent wasn't already in Hound Sprinkler. But they are. Our opponent could potentially actually pick this up as we're not in Sprinkler. And it's a somewhat expensive tech at this point in the game to commit to. But with already double-teched hounds, triple-teching isn't that big of a deal. The only problem is it's ranged hounds, so they might not be getting onto the acid as soon as we'd like, which would force us into range on our steel balls, so they get a little bit of that value with the sprinkler. So that's the idea of the range first on the steel ball, is one, it deals with the scorpions much better with crawler, and two, if we do need the sprinkler on our dogs, we can kind of wait out an extra turn and sack some damage as we have a lot of HP here. So then the sprinkler and the balls are a little bit closer to each other, so the balls aren't necessarily running forward into the acid. Our opponent, I guess, is pulling away. I don't get this play. There was a Vulcan drop, there was acid, there was quick deploy, and then the item, right? Something like that? Or a quick teleport or something like that. So I don't understand this. If it's to avoid the acid, the hounds already deal with it, so that's a misplay. As you can see, the range on the steel ball is doing wonders here. This pack did get hit once by the scorpions, which is just saying there's a crawler problem on my board here in that area. And this splits my army up in a weird way. Our opponent is not going to get this tower very quickly because of that pole. And the rest of my army, whether this dies or not, is coming through and is going to take this tower for free and is just going to clean up. This pole really hurt our opponent. I don't know what the logic was behind it. I would love to know the idea. Because maybe it was just more he needed to pull further and then down towards this tower, perhaps. And you fight the army a little bit earlier. I'm not really sure. But anyway, we will continue with our push with the steel ball in the Asym. Haste is offered, very interesting. Underground's offered, interesting. And so is Shield. I think those three cards are all good if you have a plan with them in some manner. We'll see. Some oil comes down for our opponent here. Probably not going to get set on fire unless they set it on fire themselves. We are deciding to go for a bit of a cheese finish here. Going for the crawler techs. We might have been better off placing our crawler back here. And eating up and then running towards the tower. I thought back here was probably the best place to place it, but maybe not, as I've been pulling up and over with my fire badger, and it might just burn everything in the area anyway. We take a value missile here to just kill this chaff clear tower. It's just a little annoying. Gives less targets for my units to deal with. They'll probably kill a couple fangs, but it looks like my hounds are already going to be killing the fangs anyway. Our opponent is missiling hard over here. Our missile will kill some of these Mustangs, as they will stand still until they have to move forward to get onto the fire badgers. We finally sold out of this Phoenix. That was level 1. And we just delay the enemy army back here for quite a while, actually. We kind of split them up into two sections, which actually I think is quite favorable for us, because now we're fighting 1, 2, potentially 3 armies with just one, essentially. And, you know, divide and conquer is the name of the game sometimes. But this tower debuff could be huge for our opponent here. Our hounds are behind. It's these crawlers really need to get to the front here. Though the damage is slow to coming in, which is a problem for our opponent. Those sabers really need to get in. Same with this scorpion. It's just lost on the other side of the board. And finally our crawlers get to the front line, and it's just over at this point. So I think the big things to take away with these weird pushes on either side is you need to defend the chaff that comes and sits on the tower for a little bit, because what's going to happen is these guys are going to be sitting right about here. All the crawlers of fangs are going to be in this area in front, so that's for your hound or your late tarantula, Vulcan, wraith, whatever you have. You sit it behind the tower, and then everything groups up on the tower, and you just shoot what's on the tower. So that's the idea of these units here. That's all you need. You just need chaff clear on this side. This is where you get into problems. You're fighting you have two armies essentially versus one army, really, right? Like the supply difference is massive. Whereas over here I have invested a lot. I've invested, if we just count units, 400, 5, 7, 8, 9. I guess we can count this one. 1,000 supply versus 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 15, right? Like we're 2,000 supply here. We're 2,000 supply here, and you know, we have our 1,000 supply, and then we have 3,000 supply, right? So it's 3,000 versus 2,000, and then it's 1,000 versus 2,000. The 3,000 that doesn't die and gets to the tower is going to win, and then as long as the tower debuff isn't terrible, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to understand that you have to let this tower die. It's going to happen. If you do go for the full stop, you really need to probably have a very comprehensive battle plan here. Unfortunately, our opponent never lit this oil on fire. Our units just never got into it before the badgers ended up dying. So a little bit of a misplay by our opponent here. I think a better way to set the oil on fire perhaps is to oil from here to here and then put the fire badgers here, because you're going to get these crawlers with the oil and the fire badgers, and you're going to pull some of this army over to the left here, which would actually kind of hurt me. One of the things that I never had to do in this game was take a beacon and run at the tower here, so there was no flank pull here like I did as here, other than the very early crawler in the back, I believe. So that is one of those things where our opponent should be doing, kind of like what we're doing here, that they did not get into. And they also never committed to building out this side flank, unlike us, who we did. But those are just some of my thoughts on the game of what I think our opponent could do a little bit better. Whether or not that is the proper way to play or not, I don't know. I'm just here playing some games for fun. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.